everyone. ASML reported quarterly financial results today, and the stock price was down by more than double digits as well. Now, that isn't directly a result of its quarterly financial statements. There was also geopolitical news that came out today regarding export restrictions to China, which are also bringing down ASML's stock price. So I'll try and separate and distinguish how much of the stock price decline was due to the company's financial results and how much of the stock price decline was due to the geopolitical news. I'll also review the company's financial statements and what it could mean for ASML stock investors. And finally, I'll update my buy recommendation for ASML stock. Remember, I've had the stock rated as a buy all year long, and I've had the stock rated as a buy before this year as well. So I'll update that recommendation. I'll let you know if I still think the stock is a buy on this dip here. There's a lot to cover. Let's get right into it.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, so ASML CEO saying that in line with previous quarters, overall semiconductor inventory levels continue to improve, and we also see further improvement in litho tool utilization levels at both logic and memory customers. While there are still uncertainties in the market, primarily driven by the macroeconomic environment, we expect industry recovery to continue in the second half of this year. And that's been the story with ASML stock all year long in 2024. Year over year, they're reporting decreases in sales and gross profit and operating profit, but they're recovering. Quarter over quarter, sales improved, and management is expecting sales to continue improving in Q3 and Q4. Now, the company is benefiting on the back of rising investments for artificial intelligence. There are big orders upcoming for ASML, most notably from TSMC, which I'll highlight in a little bit. But ASML is investing and preparing for this big upcycle, this big upturn from its buyers, investing in expanding their capabilities in producing semiconductors. You've had announcements from all the major semiconductor producers, including Taiwan Semiconductor, Intel, Samsung, and others, Micron Technology, stating that they are expanding manufacturing capacity. And that's great news for ASML because these companies use ASML's technology to produce their chips. And so that's great news for ASML. But it's been slow. It's been slow getting going again following this downturn in the cycle. Management saying they expect third quarter net sales between 6.7 and 7.3 billion with gross profit margin of 50.5% at the midpoint. So at the midpoint of this revenue forecast would mean that ASML delivers roughly $7 billion in revenue in the third quarter, and that would be up from what they reported in the second quarter, which was 6.2 billion in revenue. I'll talk a little more about revenue a little later in the video. And they also delivered 51.5% gross profit margin in the second quarter. Management is forecasting a decrease in gross profit margin, but this gross margin in this quarter was above expectations as well. So their expectations could be conservative going forward, and they could beat those expectations again in the next quarter. I said I would talk more about sales, and here we are at the last 3 months and the last 6 months. So in the 3 months that ended June 30th, 2024, ASML's total net sales declined to 6.2 billion, down from 6.9 billion in the same quarter the prior year. For the 6 months ended June 30th, sales are down to 11.5 billion, down more than 2 billion from 13.6 billion in the same 6-month period last year. And of course, that's bringing down profitability. Income from operations was down to 1.8 billion from 2.2 billion in the 3-month period the prior year. And those operating income declines were worsened for the first half of the year at 3.2 billion, down from 4.468 billion. Now, management told investors this would be a transition year as the industry bottoms and is now recovering. and that the second half of this year would be better, and then 2025 would be much better than 2024, and then that would lead to several years of growing sales because of these aggressive investments in manufacturing capacity. So 2024 is a transition year for ASML. Now, if you look at their key ratios in the 3 months that ended June 30th, the gross profit margin increased to 51.5% from 51.3%. That's impressive considering that overall net sales declined, and they were still able to deliver increasing gross profit margin both in the most recent 3 months and in the most recent 6 months. However, operating profit margin declined to 29.4% from 32.8%, and the same was true for the 6 months ended June 30th. The operating profit margin down to 28% from 32.7%. But as you'll notice in the most recent quarter, operating profit margin of 29.4% was better than the 28% for the first half of the year. So you do notice that trend of improving results for ASML, just as management is predicting and forecasting. Now, the value of booked systems or the orders increased year over year up to 5.567 billion, up from 4.5 billion in the same quarter last year. And so far in the first 6 months, the value of sales is up to 9.178 billion, up from 8.252 billion. The value of sales really jumped here in the second quarter, up from roughly 3.7 billion in the first quarter. Now it's up to 5.5 billion in the second quarter, and you are noticing that upturn in the cycle here for ASML. Now, the Wall Street Journal this morning reported that ASML's net system sales by destination have grown to 49% for China, because sales to that region was up 20% year over year in the most recent quarter, while overall company sales were down. So China is growing in importance for ASML. And that's troubling because the Biden administration is considering increasing the restrictions on what ASML can send to China. Already, it's not sending its most innovative technology to the region. It's sending its older generation technology. It's less innovative, less cutting edge technology, and it's still generating 49% of its overall revenue to the region. So if there was further restrictions, that could really put a damper on ASML's growth expectations going forward. That's the primary reason I feel the stock price was down by double digits today, because overall the earnings results were roughly in line with what investors were expecting when you consider maybe the forecast was a little bit less than expected, but the actual results for this quarter was better than expected. Overall, they've reiterated their expectations for the full year in 2024 and signaled that yes, it's still a transition year. We're getting ready for that upturn in the cycle, and it seems that the quarter went as roughly as planned for ASML. Now, one of the regions that is surprisingly falling behind is Taiwan at only 11% of sales, and that's most likely due to the main operator in the region, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, has not been ordering ASML's systems at the level that was expected. They might be waiting a little bit to see the developments for how they're planning their manufacturing footprint, diversification, trying to see if they can get some of their most cutting edge manufacturing outside of Taiwan, although it would be difficult. So there's some interesting expectations there coming with ASML and its sales to Taiwan. ASML stock price is now down to $932 per share following these announcements. It was trading at closer to $1,100 per share earlier in July. ASML is now trading at a forward price to earnings of 28.74, which is right about where this stock has been trading for the better part of the last 2 years. Now, I've had ASML stock rated as a buy. Let me make this bigger so you can see. Now, I've had ASML stock rated as a buy, and you can see I last updated that recommendation on April 19th. So following these earnings results, do I still think the stock is a buy? The answer is yes. I still think ASML stock is a buy. Even after these earnings results, the valuation is down by double digits, 10%. The risks are higher. So you're getting a lower price, but that's to account for the greater risk you're taking. All in all, I still like the risk versus reward. I still think ASML stock is a buy at current valuations. If you liked the video you just saw and you want to see more just like it, please subscribe to the channel. I can't keep this channel free without the support of viewers like you. And if you're already subscribed, thank you, and I appreciate your support.